Michael Schrage é pesquisador sênior da Sloan School of Management, Escola de Negócios do MIT, o Massachusetts Technology Institute. Lá ele é um dos maiores especialistas sobre economia da inovação. Ele é autor de diversos livros, incluindo o premiado The Innovator's Hypothesis. Suas pesquisas incluem o uso estratégico de dados na gestão, nas organizações e também a evolução da expertise humana versus as novas tecnologias. E hoje nós vamos conversar com ele sobre liderança, sobre o uso de dados na gestão e os impactos das novas inteligências artificiais, como o famoso ChatGPT, para as organizações, para os profissionais e para a sociedade. It's a pleasure having you here, Michael. And accept our invitation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Michael, let's start talking about leadership. How do you think a CEO can find out the strategic value of artificial intelligence for his business? What's important to understand? What metrics, what numbers best capture his vision of success for his organization?
Well, that's a very interesting question, particularly in the context of AI and machine learning. I work with a number of organizations as they seek to bring in and apply AI, ML capabilities. And I think the most important thing is beginning to understand what is the capability of artificial intelligence and machine learning. In the same way you would look at somebody with a certain amount of creative talent or financial talent or analytic talent, you need to look at the technology as transforming the economics of and dimensions of the capability. So what does it mean when you can create smarter processes? What does it mean when you can optimize things faster and more efficiently? If you were to ask me the most important thing that a CIO, a CEO, a leader needs to be concerned about with machine learning, it would be, what are their KPIs? What are their metrics? Their key performance indicators, their metrics. What does AI and ML do very well? They optimize things. This is an optimization capability. What I believe is most misunderstood about the potential and application of AI and ML is, if you really wish to optimize a key performance indicator, if you really wish to optimize a metric, the quality of your data matters more. There is the oldest saying in computer science, I was a computer science person, was garbage in, garbage out. You need quality data for quality analytics, for quality optimization. All serious leaders who want to get greater value from machine learning need to revisit and revise the quality of their data to optimize the value they get from that data.
And what are the skills, the new skills you're observing, Michael, emerging today to deal with this digital transformation that's happening in organizations today?
That's also an excellent question. The real skill is articulating what it is you want to optimize. How do we know? These are the talents, these are the skills that require real human involvement. This is where people are separate from machines. Once we know what to optimize, the machines will take over. The algorithms will take over. But for identifying and defining and debating and prioritizing what needs to be optimized, humans, leadership, domain expertise need to collaborate and coordinate.
Well, you speaking about our personal relation, okay, with technology. You recently wrote that the best advice now is more likely to come from smart machines than clever people. So could you explain a little bit about why do you just said that?
When one looks at the success of a Spotify or an Amazon or a TikTok, what is the secret sauce? What is the special ingredient that gives them a special competitive advantage? It is the ability to look at enormous volumes of data and recognize what people like you like. And here's the trick. Instead of giving you the single best answer, instead of optimizing around a single answer, it optimizes around choices. You are getting the best choices. You are getting the best advice. And you've now put your finger on something that I think is very, very, very important going forward. I believe that most human beings do not want to work for a machine, for an algorithm. You do not want the algorithm alone to be your boss. So you do not want to do what an algorithm tells you to do. The distinction that I think is going to become more and more important is not just what is the best answer, but what are the best choices. And now this connects to the first question that you asked me. What is the software capability? What is the technology that reliably generates the best choices and the best options for decision, behavior, next best action? It is machine learning. It is artificial intelligence. And one last point, that creates a feedback loop because you make a decision and you're happy or unhappy with that decision and you let the software know. The software learns from the decisions you make, from the advice that you do or do not follow. And that's how you create a virtuous cycle of a system that not only learns to learn, but learns more about you and what you like and what you want. That is huge. That's profound.
Well, talking about now the famous chat GPT, that
Yes.
the power chatbot platform created by OpenAI that understands in a very friendly way what people say and whose answers sound very human and has. Do you think it has the potential to really impact our professional future? And who could benefit and who could be left behind by this?
We already know that it is the potential to transform professional futures because in America and other countries, people are seeking to regulate it. ChatGPT and what I would prefer to call large language models must be taken very seriously. I use large language models in my work. I have found it makes a very significant difference in my behavior. I want to make clear one thing before I go into a little more detailed explanation. I do not believe that large language models think. I think they are wonderful at discovering and creating provocative patterns, thought-provoking patterns. So let me give you the 3 ways that I use ChatGPT. The first is I use it as a way to think out loud. I ask a question, I throw in some things that I'm curious about and ask ChatGPT to elaborate on it. Sometimes I get very boring, pedantic, obvious answers. So my prompts need to be more specific, more targeted, more provocative, with more connections. And what I discover is, this is an interesting phrase. This is an interesting reference. This is an interesting way of viewing it. So having a different conversation through ChatGPT, I understand something I care about differently. And sometimes I take the text and edit it and weave it into something. That is my main use, 50%. Another quarter of my use is for specific things. There is a deliverable. Write me some code in SQL. Give me a summary of these 2 books, these 2 papers. Here is something that I want to explain to somebody. Give me this. So it is associated with a specific deliverable that I will copy edit and then forward on. And then the third is in helping manage a relationship with a colleague or a team. I'm trying to create a shared understanding or alignment. So I ask my own questions with prompts, but I say how, and so I get my understanding for myself and say, how would I use this to persuade academic collaborators, my client, a board of directors? And so it becomes a way of creating a shared space for collaboration and shared understanding. As you might imagine, these three categories are very important to my work. So absolutely, I think ChatGPT is very, very important for knowledge workers who have underlying patterns in the way they need to work with other people, work with themselves, and work with machines. So self-exploration, quick deliverables, and helping improve the quality of interaction with collaborators and colleagues.
Well, maybe so for knowledge workers, it can will affect the way, as you told us, the way we work, we do our jobs. But some people say that ChatGPT also could help any person to gain competences that once was restricted to well-educated workers. So in a way, it could decrease the performance gap between employees. Do you think, is it a real or a too optimistic vision?
Well, that's a more challenging scenario for me to consider, because in the first and final analysis, human beings are human beings. So I'm sure, and please do not consider this to be a critique, but I'm sure that you, like myself, have received very good advice from people and we've ignored it or we've misinterpreted it. So there is nothing about ChatGPT that is necessarily going to change how people follow advice, build advice, etc. So I think that what you're going to see is the implementation and application of large language models as a function of people's personalities, purpose, and desires, not just the job that they have. I will be very curious, for example, to see what kind of training is done for most people to get more value from large language model interfaces. To be clear, we are just at the beginning of that. I believe that 1 year and 2 years from now, there will continue to be dramatic changes in the use cases to which large language models are applied inside the workplace and out. One last point, I think, because I wrote a book on recommender systems, generative AI and large language models will be as useful for the consumer side of the marketplace as for the producer side of the marketplace.
Okay, well, I was talking with a dean from an important business school recently, and he told me that after ChatGPT, the only thing that will really differentiate what you can learn from him, from the business schools, is the ability to develop critical thinking. That's do you agree with that?
The one spin, the one twist I would make on what the dean told you is, to the extent that large language models become more and more touch points for people, critical thinking skills become much more important. The way I would frame it slightly differently is, what does it mean to do critical thinking? What does agency and choice mean in a world where all of the machines that you use are smarter than you are? 3 to 5 years from now, the machines really will be smarter. They will be able to solve most structured and unstructured problems better than you. We are beginning to see this in medicine. We already are seeing it in finance and financial advice. We absolutely are seeing it in journalism and storytelling. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how if and how people improve their critical thinking skills so they can collaborate with machines and algorithms rather than have those machines and algorithms tell them what to do.
Oh, great. Thank you, Michael. It was very nice talking to you.
You're very kind.
Very
I very much appreciate the questions and the comments, and I hope this interview turns out to be of use. Obrigado. Thank you so much.
Thank you.